If you've ever been blindsided by a breakup, if you've ever had a woman leave you even though you treated her well, gave her everything she needed, and did all the right things, then what I'm about to tell you is going to sting. But it's going to make sense of everything that's been confusing you. Because here's the hard truth that no one wants to say out loud. Being a good man is not enough. In fact, sometimes being too good, in the way most men understand it, is exactly what pushes women away. I know that sounds backwards. You've been told your whole life to be kind, to be respectful, to be supportive, to put her needs first. And those aren't bad qualities. But there's a difference between being a good man with strength and being a nice guy who sacrifices himself to keep the peace. One is attractive, the other is suffocating. And if you don't understand this distinction, you're going to keep losing women who claimed they wanted exactly what you were giving them. So pay attention, because I'm about to break down the real reasons women leave good men, and more importantly, what you can do about it. Let's start with reason number 1, and this is the biggest one that most men completely miss. You stopped being a challenge. When you first met her, you had your own life. You had your own friends, your own interests, your own goals. You weren't always available. You had standards. You had boundaries. There was a version of you that she had to work to get close to, and that created attraction. But somewhere along the way, probably because you thought that's what a good boyfriend does, you made her your entire world. You became always available. You dropped your hobbies to spend more time with her. You canceled plans with your friends whenever she wanted to see you. You started seeking her approval for decisions. You made her the center of your universe, thinking that would make her feel loved and secure. But here's what actually happened. You became predictable. You became safe. You became the guy she knew she could take for granted because you proved that you would always be there no matter what, that you had no life outside of her. Women don't want to be your entire world. They want to be part of your world. There's a massive difference. When you make her the center of everything, you're actually communicating that you don't have anything else going on that's important. You're signaling low value. You're showing her that she's the best you can do, which makes her wonder if she can do better. I know this sounds harsh, but attraction doesn't care about fairness. Attraction responds to perceived value, and value comes from scarcity and independence, not from constant availability and neediness. Think about the early stages of your relationship. She was attracted to the man who had his own thing going on. Maybe you were working on your career, hitting the gym regularly, spending time with friends, pursuing hobbies. You had a life that was interesting and full. When she entered that life, she felt like she was gaining access to something valuable. But when you abandoned all of that to focus entirely on her, you became less interesting. The man she fell for disappeared, and he was replaced by someone who revolves around her completely. Reason number 2, you avoided conflict at all costs. Most good men think that keeping the peace means avoiding arguments, always agreeing, never rocking the boat. So when something bothers you, you stay quiet. When she does something that crosses your boundaries, you let it slide. When you disagree with her, you go along with what she wants anyway. You think this is what being mature and loving looks like. But what you're actually doing is teaching her that you have no backbone, that you're afraid of losing her, and that you'll compromise yourself to keep her around. Women respect men who have boundaries and enforce them. Not in a controlling or aggressive way, but in a calm, firm way that communicates self-respect. When you never push back, when you never challenge her perspective, when you agree with everything she says, even when you don't actually agree, you're not being loving, you're being weak. And weakness is one of the fastest attraction killers that exists. She might not consciously realize this is happening, but on a gut level, she starts to lose respect for you. Healthy relationships require friction. They require two people who are willing to be honest about their needs, their boundaries, their perspectives, even when that creates tension. When you avoid all conflict, you're not creating peace. You're creating resentment and boredom. She starts to feel like she's dating someone who has no strong opinions, no real personality, just someone who molds himself into whatever she wants. And that's not attractive. That's not even really a relationship. It's more like having a servant who's desperately trying to please her. The irony is that women will often test you on this. They'll push against your boundaries to see if you'll hold them. They'll disagree with you to see if you'll stand your ground or immediately cave. They'll create little conflicts to see how you handle tension. And when you fail these tests repeatedly by always backing down, by always being the one to apologize even when you're not wrong, by never standing up for yourself, she loses attraction. Not because she's trying to be difficult, but because she's unconsciously assessing whether you're strong enough to handle real-life challenges. Reason number 3, you stopped leading. Now, I know this is controversial in modern times, but here's the reality. Women are attracted to men who can make decisions, who have a direction, who can take charge of situations when needed. This doesn't mean being controlling or making all the decisions unilaterally. It means being comfortable in a leadership role, being decisive when she wants you to be, and having a plan rather than always asking her what she wants to do. When everything becomes a negotiation, when every decision is, I don't know, what do you want to do? When you're constantly deferring to her for direction, she starts to feel like she's dating someone without a spine. She starts to feel like she has to be both the masculine and feminine energy in the relationship. And that's exhausting. Women want to be able to relax into their feminine energy, but they can only do that when they're with a man who's comfortable in his masculine energy. This shows up in small ways that accumulate over time. She asks where you want to go for dinner, and you say, wherever you want. She asks what you think about something, and you say, whatever makes you happy. She's trying to understand who you are, what you want, how you show up in the world, and you keep deflecting back to her. Eventually, she realizes she doesn't actually know who you are because you've spent the entire relationship trying to be whoever she wants you to be instead of being yourself. Leadership in a relationship also means having vision. It means knowing where you're going in life and inviting her to be part of that journey. It means making things happen rather than waiting for things to happen to you. When you're passive in your own life, when you're just coasting without direction or purpose, she feels that lack of leadership energy. She starts to wonder if you're capable of handling the bigger challenges that life will throw at you both. And if the answer seems like no, her attraction fades. Reason number 4, you became emotionally dependent on her. This is a big one that good men rarely see in themselves. You started needing her validation to feel good about yourself. Your mood became dependent on her mood. Your happiness became tied to whether she was happy with you. Your self-worth became wrapped up in the relationship. And while it might seem romantic to need someone that much, it's actually deeply unattractive because it places an enormous burden on her. When you need her to be happy, when you can't handle her having a bad day without taking it personally, when you're constantly seeking reassurance that she still loves you, you're not being her partner. You're being her emotional burden. She has to manage her own emotions and yours. She can't ever just be in a bad mood or need space without you spiraling into insecurity. She can't focus on her own problems without you making it about the relationship. It's exhausting, and eventually, she needs to get away from that weight. Emotional independence is crucial. You should have your own sources of fulfillment, your own ways of processing emotions, your own support system outside the relationship. The relationship should enhance your life, not be your life. When she sees that you're fine on your own, that you have your own emotional center, that you don't need her to complete you, that's when she feels safe to fully love you. But when she feels like you'll fall apart without her, she starts to feel trapped rather than loved. This also shows up in how you handle relationship problems. If every issue becomes a crisis, if you can't regulate your own emotions during conflict, if you need constant reassurance after any disagreement, she starts to see you as emotionally immature. Women want a partner, not a project. They want someone who can handle the normal ups and downs of a relationship without losing their center. When you can't provide that stability, she starts looking for the exit. Reason number 5, you lost yourself in the relationship. This connects to everything we've talked about, but it deserves its own point. The man she fell in love with had passion, had drive, had interests, had goals, but over time you let all of that fade. You stopped going to the gym as consistently. You stopped pursuing your career goals as aggressively. You stopped seeing your friends as often. You stopped doing the things that made you interesting and fulfilled. And you did all of this thinking it was what being in a relationship meant. But she didn't fall in love with a guy who would give up on himself. She fell in love with a guy who was becoming someone. When you stop growing, when you stop pursuing your own development, when you become comfortable and complacent, you become less attractive. Not because she's shallow, but because human beings are attracted to growth and expansion, not stagnation. When she looks at you and sees someone who's stopped evolving, who's content to just exist in the relationship without any ambition or drive outside of it, she starts to feel disappointed. This is one of the cruelest ironies of relationships. You sacrifice yourself thinking it shows love and commitment, but the sacrifice itself is what kills the attraction. She doesn't want you to sacrifice your growth for her. She wants you to include her in your growth. She wants to be with a man who's on a mission, who's building something, who's constantly improving. When you stop being that man, even if you stopped because you thought it's what she wanted, she loses the very thing that attracted her to you in the first place. Here's what you need to understand. Women don't leave good men because they're bad people or because they don't appreciate what they have. They leave because the man they're with has become someone different from the man they fell for, not because he changed in big dramatic ways, but because he slowly gave up all the qualities that made him attractive. He became too available, too agreeable, too passive, too dependent, too comfortable. So if you want to keep a high-quality woman attracted to you long-term, here's what you do. Maintain your independence. Keep your hobbies, your friends, your goals. Don't make her the center of your universe. Have boundaries and enforce them calmly and firmly. Don't avoid conflict just to keep the peace. Be willing to lead when leadership is needed. Have a direction in your life. Don't become emotionally dependent on her for your happiness and validation. And never stop growing and pursuing your own development. Being a good man means having integrity, being honest, being respectful, being caring, but it also means being strong, being independent, being decisive, being ambitious. When you combine both sides, when you're kind but not weak, supportive but not dependent, available but not desperate, that's when you become genuinely attractive at a level that lasts. That's when women don't leave. They stay because being with you makes their life better, not because they feel obligated or guilty. Now go be that man.